place that light is afraid to touch, where the monsters beneath your bed and hiding behind your fear refuse to travel. Do you dare? Is your mind capable of the sights you will see? Is your body prepared for the sounds you will hear? Is your spirit up to the challenge of what you soon may feel? If so, have a seat with the seductress of the dark, Sarah Terror, the Sultan of Satan, Chunky Larry, and the Clown Prince of Fear, Arlie Grind. This is the Ghoul Kids Table.
Greetings, fellow insomniacs, and welcome to the table. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ghoul Kids Table, wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. I, of course, am your host. My name is Chunky Larry, but this episode we're short a couple of ghouls because this is a special episode. We are going to be discussing a film that I just got the opportunity to see. Good buddy of the show, Scott from the You Run podcast, pointed me in the direction of a film called The Welder, and I really enjoyed the film, and I have the opportunity, because of what I do, to discuss the film with the director himself. So this is going to be a review of The Welder, but it's also going to be a discussion with the director and writer of The Welder, Mr. David Liz. How you doing, my man?
Hey, Larry, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm so happy to be chatting about The Welder with you. I'm so glad you watched it, and now we can have a dialogue about it. We're really excited because the film's about to come out. So,
that was one of my first questions is, what is the plan of attack in terms of releasing the film? Is this going to a streaming service, or what are we doing? Are you doing it at festivals or...
Right. So actually, the film has already gone through the festival circuit, and it actually did really well in England. So that's kind of like, where Scott comes in, right? Like with the You Run podcast. Apparently, the Brits love this film. So if the Brits love it, everybody's gonna love it. Hopefully.
That's right. Well, one of the things that I noticed watching the film is it's very reminiscent of like Get Out, but also Frankenstein in an interesting way. And, I know that you grew up in Miami and you are of mixed race, very much like myself. So I have to assume that a lot of this is written experientially for you, and it's a way to kind of address those things. Am I wrong?
Definitely. No, and you're absolutely right. As a Latino guy, growing up in Miami, growing up in like the poorest parts of Miami, really. I'm from a small suburb called Hialeah, and it's like 99% Spanish, Cuban, Puerto Rican, Colombian. So whenever you grow up in that kind of environment, you kind of like grow up seeing some of the uglier sides of humanity sometimes. Yeah. And we saw it all, like from being called, racial slurs, and, spick, or I hate to call, but that's, the things that we were called growing up.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I was called words that I don't say on this because I don't want to get demonetized.
Yeah. Let's bleep that.
Don't worry, it will.
Yeah. But anyways, those kinds of things, like they haunt you when you're a kid, and when you grow up, you want to sort of like speak about it and hope to at least help the world understand the plight of people that come from other countries, of people of color, immigrants, and perhaps maybe by shedding some light on those things, people will have a different perspective on it. And it really, I'm trying to like express what I was trying to do in the movie without giving a spoiler away. Because since the film isn't out yet, I do want folks to go out.
We're gonna venture away from spoilers as much as humanly possible through the course of this conversation. Don't worry, I promise I'm not gonna give any of the secrets away. But I do want to talk about the character Will, because he kind of, to me, feels like a representative of the faux advocacy that we see a lot in social media. There's
Right.
always, being of a minority, we're always there's always some white person to come in and kind of stand in front with their chest out like
Yeah.
they're the hero of the situation, and it's like, dude, can I say something? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that was done intentionally, but
Oh
that was
yeah.
something I'd
That's
absolutely.
exactly right. Yeah.
And
William Godwin, absolutely, who is arguably the protagonist, but not really.
yeah,
And he sort of like steps into that role, and as you can tell by Vincent de Paul's masterful performance, he really sort of like embodies like the archetypal type. I guess you would call it like the what are they calling the
White Knight.
yeah, yeah, like a white knight, or he's trying to like solve all of the racial issues of the world because
Mm-hmm.
he had a negative experience, right? And so like now he's like the social justice warrior, and he wants to address this issue in the most radical form possible. Uh,
Yes.
I mean, arguably, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so you nailed it right on the head, like Larry. You picked up on that right away, definitely. And I'm not that was definitely done intentionally, and we have a message with that. We're trying to like say something about that.
Yeah, and to me, a lot of horror should be allegorical, and when it's great, it manages to entertain you while giving you a message, but not feeling spoon fed. And I didn't
Right.
feel like the message was overly spoon fed. It's there,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel like it's like, oh, hey, get it, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's a lot of that, and in cinema that I'm like cognizant of. But this, like I said, it's very nuanced the way that the story progresses and the way that you're introduced to the characters, especially Elisa's entire story. The way
Yeah.
that plays out, like if you've seen enough movies, you kind of get where it's gonna go,
Right.
but I feel like it's paced and it's put into the story in a way that when you get to the revelation, it's still revelatory, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, we definitely tried. There's a tight rope that we're walking, right? Whenever
Yeah.
we're trying to give a social message in a film, especially in a horror film, where it can get cheesy and corny real fast, and that
Yeah.
spoon feeding that you're talking about is the thing that we were trying to avoid. And as we're writing the script, Manny, my co-writer Manny Delgadillo, he and I struggled a lot with trying to stay on that tightrope, and uh, as we pivoted between saying too much and not saying enough, because we definitely wanted to make sure that the film had a message, but we
Mm.
didn't want people to feel like we were hitting them over the head with it.
Yes.
So we were definitely that's something that we worked really hard to try to do. And hey, you know what? Maybe some people will say you guys went too far. Maybe some people will say that we didn't. Whatever the case may be, we did our best to try to stay in the middle, and so that we could definitely not we didn't we wanted to tell a story that was modern, that dealt with modern issues that we're having, but also these issues go back for forever.
Yeah.
But also didn't want to feel like we were being cheesy or that you resonated with me when you said that, because
Yeah.
it's something that we really spent a lot of time on trying to get right.
And so I know this is your first feature. You've worked on shorts and you've done some music
Yes.
videos. Explain the process for people that are listening to this that are aspiring filmmakers themselves,
Sure.
of the transition from short form to long form, because it's a delicate uh, land to traverse, in the
Definitely.
sense that you have to be conscious of pace and cognizant of what means something at the beginning so it means something at the end, and giving those kernels and building blocks, because for this being a first feature, it uses flashback as a storytelling technique, and that's also really hard to utilize in an appropriate way, where you're giving pieces of the story as you're going through the flashbacks. So just if you could walk me through that process for you.
Yeah, well, definitely. I after I graduated film school in 2011, my goal was to make a feature film.
Mhm.
But reality set in. I'm not a trust fund baby. I don't I don't have access to tons of money
Forest
to
part of
make a
Miami.
feature, right?
Yeah.
So I had to start with my shorts, and film school prepared me for that. I went to Florida State University's film school there. They have a great program out there, and they teach you how to make short films.
Mm.
And what I like about short films is you have a time limit.
Mm.
And whether that be 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you have to tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end in a short amount of time. And if you want your film to be good, you need to, in that short amount of time, make sure that the audience cares about the characters. So it's actually a great tool to help you
Tighten things
develop
up.
your story making skills, so that when you're ready for your feature, now if you're using the same techniques, you just allowed more time. You're allotted more time to tell your story and to get into more of the nuances of the characters. And to me, that it was always the goal to make a feature and to start my feature filmmaking career. It took me almost 10 years to get there. But I had a lot of practice along the way. And I feel like if you want to be a feature filmmaker, practice with shorts. Because if you can tell a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end in a short, compacted period, to me, the hardest thing to do is to make a commercial. Those 30-second commercials, like the Super Bowl commercials, those directors get paid a lot of money to be able to tell you a story that's going to stick in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So having more time, it's like a filmmaker's dream. But obviously then there's more responsibility there, because now you have so much more time to develop ideas, and you have to follow them up, right? You have to plant a seed at the beginning, and you got to make sure that throughout the film you're watering it so that it sprouts and you have something flowering at the end.
I guess kind of what I'm asking, because when you do something long form as opposed to short form, when you're doing it short form, you have to tighten everything up. You have to get to the core of what you're trying to say really, really fast.
Yeah.
And then when you go long form, you get more room to play.
Right.
But it's a balancing act of, trimming the fat where you need to, still, to make sure that it's not indulgent, which, there's always that potential. And I don't feel like this was indulgent in any places. I felt like the way that it was paced out, it really blended in a way that it felt organic and authentic. And that's important. And, because again, so here's an example, TikTok as opposed to YouTube. A YouTube video, you can make it as long as you want and do whatever you want and go off into weird places. TikTok, you've got a couple minutes max to really tell the exact same thing. So then it's like, well, what ends up on the floor? What ends up on the screen? And that's the interesting part to me, is for somebody that's experience was with the shorts, to now with all this extra allotted time, to not become overindulgent and say, I've got this time, I can do this. This is my story, my film.
Yeah.
So
I think, Larry, that's a really good question. And I'm not going to say that I did not fall into that trap, because initially I did. Like, the film was a much longer film, the first draft. And I wanted to make it as fatty and as indulgent as I could, right?
Yeah.
As a first cut, because I was under the understanding, which this is exactly how it played out, that I was going to reduce it. I was going to cut the fat, but I wanted to see it all play it out. I wanted to see the film in its longest, most indulgent version of itself. And then I spent months, because I edited the film as well, right? So I spent months obsessing over it. Like I had like OCD. I would watch it multiple times a day, every single day. And then I would question, okay, can I get rid of this? Can I kill my darlings? Right? The things like some scenes that took time to film,
Yeah.
and money and resources. Am I going to cut that? And at the end of the day, if it was fat, I cut it. So what you see now, the welder as it stands now, is a lean version that doesn't have anything that it doesn't need to have, because I spent a lot of time just trimming it down to make. I mean, I think originally it was close to 2 hours, and now it's 86 minutes. You know,
Yeah.
it's I cut like 30 minutes off the film, but all fat. Like everything that we filmed that was cut from the original draft is stuff that I thought I wanted, I thought I needed.
I feel like there's some stuff with Roe that hit the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had some stuff with Roe that just didn't make the cutting room, you know.
It hints at certain things with his character that it doesn't fully explore. So I would assume that that's some of the stuff that is not there.
Yeah, there were some things like that, definitely. But there were bigger fish to fry, and I felt like the attention needed to go to these bigger ideas.
Yeah.
So at the end, you know, his some scenes that maybe like that some things that he hints at, perhaps, or that the character, our story arc hints at, maybe they don't come to full fruition, but they're small in comparison to the bigger picture, the bigger things, the bigger fish.
And the relationship with Elisa and Ro is very common in the situation that she's in.
Yeah.
And there's that struggle with that. And you see him trying to do what he can to break through that. And I'm trying to say this as delicately without giving anything away, obviously, but I feel like that was such a natural and kind of sweet relationship that specifically the scene where they're stopping and they're getting the coconut and they're, you know, just having that moment. I feel like if that would have been cut, it would have taken away from, you know, the investment in those characters when things start to happen.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I preach on the show when I do reviews all the time is character investment and making sure that you care about the characters. So when something bad happens, you're along for it because you're now invested in this person's life or unalive. So, you know, I think you did a really good job is what I'm telling you.
Thank you so much, Larry. Yeah, and you know that was really important for me because I got, you know, on the writing room, Manny and I kept fighting about, should this relationship be more loving? Are we like, you know, are we there? Because Alisa's going through such emotional turmoil, and Ro doesn't want to like push too hard, because he doesn't want to like push her away. But then, like, you know, you watch all these movies, and anytime there's like a relationship, it's either like the characters are fighting all the time, or they're like they can't keep their hands off each other or something. And so we wanted it to feel like more natural. Like if somebody's going through this kind of like psychological trauma, like how would your partner react to that? Like a loving partner, a partner that loves you and cares about you and doesn't want to push you away. And that was like kind of like one of the most important things for me. I wanted that relationship to feel real, because just like you said, later on when things happen, I want you to care. I don't want you to be like, I didn't care about them anyways.
And you know, there's an added tension, a story tension when you lean into that. And I feel like it shows both of them are trying to make it work, but that there's something that's unspoken that she hasn't even told him about,
Yeah.
that they're having to contend with. And the relationship with her mother is also, very important to the story,
Yeah.
in the sense that she's her outlet for all of these things.
Right.
And so in the beginning, the conversation with her mother, as opposed to the end, the conversation with her mother, they're two different conversations.
Yeah.
And it works. It allows that decision that she makes make a little bit more sense,
Right.
because it's a left field decision had you not gone on this journey.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a really interesting hook that you guys put into the story to allow it to get to where it goes.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that at all?
And definitely I'll talk about that, because like the conversation that she has with the mom at first, which she sort of dismisses, she kind of like ends up taking her advice at the end.
Yeah.
After going through this journey, which is quite, like you said, it's an unexpected left field type thing. But I guess what we were trying to say is that when you get pushed and you feel like you've been taken advantage of, and you are willing to, at the end, like jump off the deep end. And what does that mean? It can mean something different to anybody, depending on your situation, right? And I think that once you jump off the deep end, you've made a decision and you embrace it. And I think that's what happens to her. Like something snapped, and now she embraces it. Like, okay, well, it is what it is. And I feel like I'm going into.
I'm trying to like, oh, no, you're gonna do it. I'm trying to keep from spoiling it. Now you're gonna spoil.
I think that's enough. I'm not gonna say more about that, but at the same time, it is a very interesting journey that she's going on, and I think that people, when they watch it, by the end of it, they're gonna be like, okay, I could see that happening.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but I want to circle back to this now. Where are people going to be able to see this?
Yes. Okay. So The Welder is going to come out on digital worldwide. It's going to be a worldwide release. I was about to do a Bugs Bunny worldwide release. Worldwide release. All right. No, worldwide release. And that is going to be February 24th, 2023. So just, I don't know when this is going to air, but it might already be aired the movie might be out by the time this airs, but maybe not. So check it out after 2/24/23, and it's going to be available on Amazon. It's going to be available on Tubi and a few other platforms. Yeah. We love Tubi.
We love Tubi here too.
Yeah. And so we're excited for that, and we can't wait to just share it with the world. It's a very exciting. Before I go, I want to tell you guys where we got the idea for The Welder. So our co-writer Manny, I don't know if we're running out of time here, but this is.
No, tell the story. You're good.
It'll be fast because it's kind of fun. It's kind of cool. So I feel like sometimes the things that scare us the most, they come from our childhood. At least for me, that's the case.
Yeah.
And when we're coming up with ideas at the very beginning of the writing process for what we're going to write, what we're thinking about, obviously we wanted to do horror. Manny tells me, something that really scared me as a kid, because we're going through like things that scared us. He's like, his dad was a welder when he was growing up. And sometimes on the weekend, his dad had to work overtime hours or whatever. So Manny had no choice but to go into the shop with him. And it's just him and his dad. He'd go into a corner and watch TV while his dad worked for a few hours. And then sometimes his dad would play a little prank on him. He'd turn off all the lights, and then his dad would hide like in a corner. And then Manny would freak out. He's like, Papa? He's like walking around the shop. And then
Power
all
on
of a
the
sudden
torch.
that would pop up. He had like the blowtorch going. He had the mask down, and he said that scared the pants off of him.
That moment's
And so,
effective as hell in the movie, by the
yeah,
way.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
no,
like, you know
that
what?
moment hit real hard.
Yeah, I'm like, man, a welder, you know what a welder wears, it's kind of like a spooky thing. You got a big jacket, you got a big mask, you carry around a torch, like, that's definitely something and so that's how like it started, right?
Yeah.
Of course, later on the welder became more of a metaphor and so on and so forth. But that's the origins. That I always love to tell that story because it comes from like real experiences, and most of the movie, 80% of it is things that we took from our real lives, experiences, people that we know, stories that we learned. And then obviously there's the 20% that's far out and just imaginary. Well, that's fun.
I want you to just kind of toss out some places where people can start looking for you guys and what you guys have coming up next. Do you have something on the fire?
Yeah, we do. We have
that you can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. So look, first of all, you can find us on Instagram at the Welder Film. That's where you can find all news about the Welder and the trailers up on there. You can also find us on www.thewelderfilm.com. We have a lot of information and resources on there about the Welder. Also, check us out on our Instagrams, personal Instagram, David Liz Films. You can find me on there if you want to learn more about me, my background, and other projects that I work on. But Manny and I are in the process of writing another horror film. So we're very excited about that. I'll tell you a little bit about it, but it's called Grandma. And it basically explores, again, we're going back to like things that are actually scary. And we're exploring some of the, most visceral, fear-inducing aspects of getting older and Alzheimer's, and how that like within a horror context, how all of us should be very scared of that. But I'm scared to say too much. To make it long, it's not a documentary or anything. It's a horror film. It's gonna be very scary, but it's really cool because we're taking so Manny's grandma had Alzheimer's and my grandma had Alzheimer's. So we just like saw them sort of deteriorate, and we, from the outside, all you could do is sort of provide, love and care to your loved one. But what is going on inside? What terrors, fears are going as the lights begin to turn off, and it lasts a long time. My grandma had Alzheimer's for over 10 years, and Manny's I think maybe like 3 or 4 years. So it's like a prolonged. Anyways, we just find that terrifying, and we're writing a script about it. So that's what we're doing.
I have a suggestion for something you should watch in preparation for writing. It's called The Long Dream. I'll send you a link to it. But
yes.
I think it's kind of in the wheelhouse of what you're talking about, and that sounds very, very exciting.
Yeah.
But if you guys are here just because of David and you've enjoyed the conversation, first of all, thank you. And I do not blame you. But if you want to know more about us, you can do that in a couple of different ways. You could start by liking us on Facebook, facebook.com/GhoulKidsTable, following us on Twitter at GhoulKidsTable, following us on Instagram at GKT Podcast, and on the Tickum Talks at Ghoul_Kids_Table. This has been a huge pleasure for me, man. I love seeing somebody that actually has something to say starting off, because you get to watch their growth, and I'm going to be following your career very, very closely. So we should be doing this again.
I'm down, Larry. No, Larry, I want to be on your show as many times as you'll have me.
As many times as you make movies, you come on and we'll talk about it. And
I'm getting ready for the next. I'm going to be ready for the next interview.
Yeah,
this is ready to talk about the next movie, and just hanging out with you and chatting with you, man. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for being so welcoming and warm, and thank you for watching the film and sharing it on your platform. Really, I'm just very honored, and I'm very thankful.
And once again, you guys, February 24th, 2023, Amazon Prime, and Tubi, you should be watching The Welder. I think that you'll enjoy it. That is Chunky Larry giving you the thumbs of approval. Give it a watch, but that's going to do it for us. So, for David and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been another episode of the Ghoul Kids Table podcast. On whatever podcast platform you listen to and on YouTube, there's always a seat available for you here at the table. Take care, guys.
This is the Ghoul Kids Table.